excited to have you all join me today in the company of such a great group of panelists. My name is Joelle Diderich. I'm the Paris Bureau Chief of Women's Wear Daily, and I have joining me today Lisa Frank, who is the CEO of Derris in New York, Lucien Pagès, who is the founder and head of the Lucien Pagès Communications Agency, and Benjamin Cercio, who's the founder of his own agency called Ben Cercio, and also has been recently named Global Communications Director for Givenchy. Each of you brings a ton of experience in your respective fields, and I'm very excited to hear all the things that you'll be sharing with us today. And so this panel is called The New Wave of Agencies. Why? Because we've been seeing just an amazing amount of change and consolidation in the communications industry in the last few years. And to kick off the start today, I wanted to get your thoughts on that in the context of how the fashion industry has changed in recent years with the dramatic increase in digital media and how each of you have been adapting to that. So, I'd like to kick it off maybe with the most sort of recent change that we've seen, which was Lucien, your agency, was recently joined the Independence Group after being boutique independent agency for 18 years. Tell us why.
But as the name is the independence, I'm still very independent. That's the beauty of this association, is that nothing really changed in my work. But for me, it was a very personal decision because the agency is very incarnate by me. It's my name. But I've been doing that since 18 years. I have worked so much, and I needed a second step in my career, even if it's not changing so much. There is like different ambition, there is like a different way of operating, and I feel more secure to do it into a group that has this quality and expertise. And also, I was feeling very, very lonely. You know, his job, I think we can all agree, that are very intense, that are very demanding. And if you have your own agency and it's keep growing, like it has, my agency has grown more than I was expected. So at the end, I've become like a kind of entrepreneur, which I was not meant to be. And I was a bit like lonely into that entrepreneurial project. And voilà. So it was a long discussion. It was like, it's not like something you make like from a day to another. So it's a long process, and you have the time to think about the consequences and why you want to join the group. Saying that, this group is very interesting in the sense that for me, they gave importance to our job of services. Because before, like you had like production or PR or consulting, but people were like not so, they were not thinking there was power behind that. But the communication is so powerful, and I think they gave a kind of frame and importance to those jobs of communication, because without communication, there is nothing. But we were always like a bit put aside if we were not like an economical strains or something like that. So I think the group has shown to the world of fashion, to the industry, that those job of services are really important and they matter.
And Lisa, you had a similar thing happen because Derris was acquired by Berlin Rosen in 2022. And, you've, with the agency, played a key role in shaping the story and the narrative of a lot of the most beloved direct-to-consumer brands of most recent years, brands like Warby Parker or Everlane or Reformation. Why was it interesting for you to be part of a broader group with maybe footholds also in different sectors?
Yeah, we were acquired, like you said, 2 years ago, Berlin Rosen Holdings, which is now called Orchestra. And it's really a communications company built for the new media landscape. We bring together different teams across disciplines. You know, there's a lot of different elements that we weren't doing on our own at Derris, and it's really helped us accelerate being able to offer our clients and our brands the right type of services and the right approach, given the way that the media and the communications landscape has just changed so dramatically. So we knew what we did really well, and we saw how quickly that landscape was shifting and the need for a more comprehensive offering, being truly able to offer sort of multi-channel services, paid, digital, et cetera. And it really gives us the ability to do that. And so we really are able to bring more to the table being part of Orchestra. And then we also have different industry expertise with the different agencies that are part of the company. So, I have a brand that has some work going on in impact and tech and policy, and that's not my forte, but we have partners that we can bring in to help really seamlessly and give one offering to the clients.
And would you say that's also a reflection of, the fact that a lot of fashion and luxury brands are making inroads into different fields, like we're seeing them, doing more things in entertainment, in gaming, in sports, in just, branching out into all these different areas?
Absolutely. I think there's a ton of crossover and collaborations, which is a natural part of marketing. And it's exciting that it's happening in all these different fields. And it gives us the ability to bring in these different experts daily, and we either create bespoke teams or just to have a brainstorm with. And it really gives us an ability to have specialty, but then also have breadth.
And Ben, working for big groups inside and out, you were for a really long time at Louis Vuitton. And then in recent years, you worked for Kering, which is the other big French luxury conglomerate at Gucci. Just, a couple of months after setting up your own agency in October, you land the twin role of having your own agency plus Givenchy. Now tell us how that works and why is it interesting for you to have a foot in both fields, so to speak?
Well, I think what's very interesting, I spent so many years in big corporations working for only one brand. And when I left my last in-house job, which was Gucci, I realized that I was really interested in different problematics and different companies and stories, actually. So I think what I love with this new endeavor that I have, having my own company and consulting for clients of different sizes and different backgrounds and different, histories, I think it's really, really refreshing and inspiring for me, but it's also something that I bring, for instance, to the bigger clients, like what I'm doing right now. I'm in Colombia visiting a client based here, and I'm learning so much from, authenticity and the way they work here and the work they are doing. And I think this is something I'm going to come back. I'm going to also approach the way I work with Givenchy very differently. So I think it's actually very important for me at that moment in time because it gives me different perspectives. And I think all brands actually could benefit from seeing the world through different perspectives.
That's really, really interesting. And I think you were saying also that for brands like Givenchy, for example, it's also now interesting for them to have somebody external handle their comms and for it not necessarily to be somebody who has that tunnel vision of being inside the brand. Do you think, big brands are going to be a little bit more open to having that kind of collaborative approach going forward?
I honestly think they should. I want to. Lucien said something very interesting before. He said communication is key. Without communication, there is nothing. And I do believe in that. I think that today the key to success comes from obviously good products and good designs to start with, but desirability is absolutely key. And us, communication people, brand building people, we bring that to brands. And without us, there is no desirability, or if there is desirability, desirable products, they are not amplified, they are not seen, they are not known. So I'm really hoping that, I really think that it's actually a very interesting model that we are putting in place, consulting for brands on a, from a freelance perspective, because we bring something very different to the table. So I think it's actually, I hope big brands will use that model more.
And so, Lisa, you're obviously, really skilled at storytelling. And we were talking about how digital media has kind of shifted the landscape for fashion. Now, how do you work with brands to help them craft authentic and compelling narratives that cut through all that noise?
Yeah, I think the panel's called The New Wave of Agencies, and I think similar to what Ben and Lucien were saying, communications is so important in order for a brand to get that resonance and get that attention. So we think our job is building connection between brand and audience, but doing it really in the way that consumers consume today. You know, it's done across social channels, building community online, offline, paid, IRL, all the different ways that you can interact with a brand. And so our role is to really help shape and define or refine a brand story, and then figure out the right way to tell that story over and over again, agnostic of channels. We really think about positioning first off, right? Making sure we have something worth saying. And ideally, it's a POV that really has longevity to it, right? The brands that connect the most are finding ways to bring their brand DNA to life over and over again. And there's a level of consistency because I think we're all being inundated with messages, you know, throughout the day, a million different messages. And so we have to find something or find a way for a brand to connect with their consumer. We really think about our jobs, like how do we create that scroll stopping content, like stop somebody to actually pay attention to it. And so really figuring out different ways for brands to show up and make it worth somebody's time. I think you create affinity between a consumer gets excited or interest in a brand when they're doing something interesting. And, you know, we have to have those different messages show up over and over again, but there has to be a level of consistency, but also like authenticity to what channel you're showing up on. So I think brands that do it really well are super true to who they are, but then have fun with it and, you know, pay attention to showing up in the right ways on different channels.
Yeah, I think that's always the golden balance, isn't it? It's sort of navigating trends and change, and people always want newness, but then at the same time having that consistency that shows that you have your own rudder and you don't always, navigate whichever way the current happens to be flowing at that particular time.
Absolutely.
Now, Ben, a lot of your career has been spent wrangling talents. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the importance of influencers and creators, because with all these changes that we've seen recently, I imagine that that strategy is also having to rapidly evolve right now. How do you evaluate the kind of voices that will authentically align with your clients' brands, and how has this changed the way that PR campaigns are actually structured?
Yes, indeed, I think influence is key. Influence marketing is very important in the jobs we do. It brings not only awareness to brands, but also organic voices to speak on behalf of the brand. It's advocacy, but I think it's fast changing, and I've seen a lot of changes recently. I think authenticity is key. I think in 2025, within this macroeconomic crisis that we are in, especially our industry, brands who are going to succeed are the most authentic brands, who are going to align with the right profiles, the right talents. And I'm explaining myself. I think after COVID, we also a big surge in revenge shopping. Everybody wanted a piece of fashion, a piece of luxury. And I used to do those very big, huge product placements where influencers would post a bag or a product all together at the same time, the same day, with the right hashtags. And this worked very well. It was very efficient. 3 years later, something like this I would never do again, because I think it's not relevant any longer. And I think it doesn't connect authentically with clients. And I advise the brands I work for to not do that any longer. I think influencers also have a responsibility, just like media and magazines who have an editorial line. I think influencers need also to work on what is their editorial line, what is their point of view. As long as they have a point of view, they will be relevant for brands who share the same POV, who share the same values. But just posting a look of the day, changing 20 times in a car to attend 20 fashion shows during the same day, I don't see any longer what value it brings to a brand. So I think it's really shifting. Authenticity and alignment is becoming more and more important.
And I remember back in 2005, when that row of bloggers all showed up at the Dolce & Gabbana show and all the traditional media emitted a collective gasp. We're kind of seeing the same thing happen again now, because we're seeing a new category of influencer, which is the fashion critic slash commentator that is social media native, but how important are they to amplifying brands' messages now?
I think they are key. You know, the Gen Z young people on TikTok don't know who Vanessa Friedman is. They don't know who Kathy Orin is. They don't know who are, you know, the legend reviewers. What they see is what is on TikTok, and those fashion commentators are the voices to their fashion. So I think it's very important for brands to align with them, to engage them, and to respect them, their point of view. They become more and more important, increasingly important, and their voices is really strong to target a new generation. So absolutely key.
So, Lucien, we're obviously on a panel that is being hosted by Launch Metrics, so we could not talk about metrics. In the past, PR was often seen as more of an art than a science. So, what kind of data and metrics do you actually use when measuring success? Is this a very important component for you?
Yes, I think I'm not a fan of metrics, sorry, but but I mean it's important because you have to justify by the money that you engage into a show, into a campaign. So for people who are like CEO, who are more about numbers, it's important to have like a kind of a feeling about the success, measuring the success. For me, in my opinion, the success is when I open my Instagram or my TikTok and I see the same event 10,000 times, and I feel that all the good people were there, the cool people were there, the important people were there. That like my measure of success is my perception of success. And when I work, I really think. When I work on an event, I really think about the outside world and how they will perceive what we do inside. And after the metrics come and we are really happy to send the reporting, is always like 8 million, 10 million, the reach, you know, it's always like vertigineux, I would say. But of course, we work with it, but we cannot be, I would say, too attached to it as well, because you can make wrong decision with metrics. Because I remember this anecdote when sometimes at the end of the year you didn't do your KPI, and so you just go into a very bad popular magazine just to raise your numbers. A lot of people from communication do that, you know, and so it's not right, because what is important is the image. And sometimes the image is not going with the numbers. Of course, the goal is to have the number and the image matching together. But we know that is not always the case. And so I'm interested by this. I love like to see the reach, and it's more like a kind of nerd things. But I don't want that it's drive the decision we are taking with the brand or the designer.
And I think you were talking about the idea of flooding the zone. Like sometimes you'll do an event and you'll invite a lot of key influencers because you would just want to see that event basically all over your feed that day.
Yeah, it's really something I calculate. Like, but depending as well the target, because sometimes it's about like demographic. You can do an event with like tastemaker that doesn't have a huge reach, but everybody that follow them, of course, who love their lifestyle, will see it. So your target is and your mission is accomplished. You know what I mean? So it's really like is the same that was Benjamin was saying, is like we cannot do like as we used to do, because the people are more aware, so they want you to talk to them directly, and sometimes the metrics or the numbers are wrong advisor, because they oblige you to talk to the mass, and maybe your client is not in the mass. But maybe your client is in the mass as well. You know, so it's a fine balance.
And so, I mean, one of the drawbacks of this social media era that we're living in is that sometimes a small communications blip can turn into a full-blown PR disaster overnight. And I think everybody has been in the position of having to manage that whether you're in the communications area or like us, the media area, because we also frequently become targets of social media users' ire for whatever reason. And so I wanted to know how you guys prepare for that and manage it. And so, Lisa, I wanted to ask for you, I mean, you have the full brand strategy that goes from positioning to identity and tone of voice. And so with these consumers that are demanding more transparency and more ethical practices, how do you advise brands to incorporate a social mission into their messaging?
I'd say overall, we really only encourage brands to get involved in something like impact or mission driven if it's authentic to your brand and something you can actually commit to. We sometimes will have brands come to us and ask us to help develop that. I think if there's something already there and we can help develop it, but it's authentic and people are just doing it because they're good people, then absolutely. But if anyone's doing it just for marketing, I don't think that's worth it. And that's not valuable. I think it's not enough these days to just have it, to do it. You shouldn't do it just for marketing. You should do it because you're a good person and you want to either donate proceeds or there's something that connects the product to the mission that you're interested in. But it's not doing it for just you shouldn't do it for marketing. That's just not authentic. And I think we've been using this word authentic a lot, but you know, it's worse to just say something and not stay true to it than to just do nothing at all. So I think we really about it in if there's something that is intrinsically tied to the brand or to the company or to what you're trying to do and you're a good person and you just want to do it, that's great, but don't do it for marketing value.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes things become trending topics. So are you saying, you know, you shouldn't just jump on the bandwagon if you suddenly, you know, discover that people care about issue X, you know, not everybody has to necessarily then talk about that issue if it's not authentic to them.
Absolutely. I think there's going to be, we live in, you know, a time where everything is spoken about over and over again, and there's a lot of hot topics. And if it's something that is intrinsically tied to your business and your brand, absolutely. But jumping on the bandwagon each time is just the most inauthentic thing you can do. And it's worse to say something and then not actually commit to it and be a little bit of smoke and mirrors than to just not be involved at all. So I think being really authentic to who you are. There's a lot of times you also have to be, if you're going to stand up for something, you might be upsetting some of your clients or some of your customers. So you have to be willing to really like stand up for what you care about and then just understand the potential consequences. But I think it's really be mindful about what you involve yourself in and it be authentic and true, not just to say that you're part of it.
Yeah, and one of the big topics of conversation right now, obviously, is diversity and inclusion. So, Ben, I actually wanted to ask you, how do you make sure that brands authentically integrate those values in their messaging in a way that is not like, as Lisa was just saying, here today, gone tomorrow?
Yes, I think what Lisa said is absolutely right. Sustainability, diversity, and inclusion is extremely important to connect with our customers, but it has to be done right and it has to be coherent and you know true to what the brand is. I think first to start with the internal commitment is key. From an HR perspective, it starts with that from the CEO, from the business leaders, and they have to believe in it. They have to implement a diverse leadership and an inclusive workspace culture. So it has to start from the leadership, from the top. And then I help brands create an authentic storytelling. Representation has to be consistent and real. As Lisa said, it can be you know, a marketing trick to please the consumers. It has to be real. I think it's also very important to set goals, measure the progress, and it's fine not to achieve, you know, it's a long-term process. You can have a 3-year plan, you can have a 10-year plan when it comes to diversity, inclusion, sustainability, all these very important topics, but having goals and measuring progress is very important. I think all of this to build trust with the consumers.
And Lucien, I mean, a lot of the brands that you work with, you've been working with them for a really long time. You work with brands like Saint Laurent, like Schiaparelli. You've been accompanying them for a while. So I want to talk to you about brand loyalty. How do you manage it when there is a bit of a PR bloop, you know, on a brand in today's cancel culture? How do you make sure that people do stay loyal to that brand, and that they don't cancel them permanently?
Mm. But I always say that I'm not specialized in crisis management, but I do communication in a world in crisis. So somehow you always have to manage crisis because it's the world is like that, and also we have a lot of information about everything that is happening. And for me, it's always want to go, I talk with my client and go to the source of the problem, to the source of the issue. For me, it's the key solution, because sometimes brands do things that offend people and they really made mistake. They really were wrong, and they really like us to acknowledge it. And you have to treat the problem at the source for me. And sometimes there is like a bad buzz that is just a kind of crazy moment where there is something that become big and it's so small and it's so untrue. You know what I mean? Both situations are possible. And so if the problem is not at the base, is not like something very problematic, and it's just the internet that start to be crazy, you deal it differently. You don't need to beg for pardon or something like that. You acknowledge it maybe in a softer way, or maybe voilà. It's more about I think all what Lisa and Ben say is true. We are all saying the same thing. Basically now the people want authenticity and they want reality and they want to trust you. So if you lie to them, if you start to manipulate too much, they feel it. They feel something is wrong. So that's why it's important to really really engage with your community, your consumer, your fan, with an honesty. I think most of the time, honest is the best. If there was a mistake, you acknowledge and you apologize, and and as Ben said, it's a long process as well, and people can understand it's a long process to get better. But
But I think you were also saying that sometimes you have to also realize when you have to stop apologizing, because at a certain point, if you apologize too often, it becomes counterproductive almost.
Yeah, and it's becoming ridiculous. The people, I think there is something where we don't understand how much people see and analyze things, and yes, if you do too much, it's also suspicious. You know what I mean? Like maybe you have something to hide. Why you apologize twice? You know, there is always a reason behind something, and the audience, I think, feel it. But as well, it's so difficult to stop something when it started on the internet. Like, and even if it's unfair, even if it's not true, like really, like we have to use our brain so much. Like sometimes it's very painful, you know, when something happened to a client that is totally unfair and you have to fix it, and the internet already gone crazy. It's very painful. It's an experience where everyone suffer, you know, because it's a machine that is launched, and it's it's a monster, a bad buzz. And when you answer and you don't answer well, as Lisa said, it is getting worse.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's better to not answer. Sometimes it's good to answer, and it's what I was saying. It's just evaluating the importance, I think, is the key.
And I mean, now that, you know, we were saying that there's this growing importance of online commenters, and I feel like, you know, we're definitely seeing that change in the media, that before there was a threshold, you know, where rumors were not necessarily being published in the public space. We would wait for information to be verified before we would publish it. But now, I feel like a lot of things that used to be gossip, behind the scenes banter, is going out there. Is it more difficult, Lucien, to manage reputations when kind of everyone is putting everything out there?
Yeah, totally. It's very recent, I have to say, because before there was a kind of like moral or like agreement between all the person of the industry. We knew gossip, we knew things, but we were waiting that it was completely signed, approved, like done to go into the media space. Now, when someone has a meeting for a job interview, you know it. And of course, maybe this person won't go into the full process of recruitment. So there is pollution, a lot of pollution in the media space right now. And I don't think it will stop. So we will have to see where it goes. But like, there is like, there is no rules now. It's a far west of because everyone that is having an account and some information, because we are all living in the same bubble. We have a lot of information. We knew we will go there, Ben and me. We know who will be there next in 6 months. But if we decide, Ben and I, to create an account and put all our information there, it's possible. You know what I mean? Like, it costs nothing to create a fake account. So it's kind of stressful, because as well, you, like official media, I would say, or like partners that are real journalists, where you're waiting verification, you can miss the scoop, because like everyone goes wild and publish everything. So it's really like it's really like hysterical right now, I would say. And also, I think it's a pity, because when the news is out and official, nobody care anymore, because it's an old news for people. You know what I mean? It's like the gossip is now more important than the reality. You know, before, gossip were at the table between friends, and we were like having fun, and no, Messi, oh, if I would go there. Now it's like on the under the eye of everyone. So it's kind of, for us, it's very complicated to handle that.
Lisa and Ben, do you want to weigh in on this evolution?
I mean, I think Lucien very much articulated it. I think there's with social media, and it's easier than ever just to publish whatever you want to publish. It's not just coming from, I think, certain people, like Lucien was saying before. And it's a trickier time to navigate things. And so really figuring out when you need to speak up and when you just let a rumor die down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as communicators ourselves, the landscape has changed. Let's use this new landscape for our own benefit and for our clients' benefit. These commentators are there, these gossip websites and accounts are there. That's what we do. We can also use them for our own storytelling.
Yeah. No, it's true. You're right. But also, I see a change now recently. Now the house has changed. Before, when there was gossip out, the house was precipitating themselves to officialize the news. Now they don't care. Which is interesting. That's why there was so much time between like the first gossip about Chanel and the finalization of the news.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the brand or the group or everyone is changing his mindset and decided that gossip are gossip, and they let them live and announce when they want. I think that will be as well a change in the approach.
I find it also very interesting to see the use of the word official changing. I'm seeing on some gossip websites, it's official, Eddie is going to Gucci. And I'm like, did I miss the announcement? And no, it's official in their mind. So therefore it's official. So you also have to learn how to reread the language of certain things. But I think, Lisa, I wanted to ask you, because a lot of these brand communication issues that we've had perhaps in recent years were due to cultural differences. When you have clients that are based worldwide, you have to navigate the way that messages are going to land in different countries. So how do you work with brands to make sure that they do have a presence in all the territories, but they still respect and adapt to those specificities?
I think that's exactly it. It's adapting and making sure, again, we really believe that that positioning work is foundational, and figuring out like there's a level of consistency, like the brand is the same, it's the same brand in all these different locations, but how it shows up, the what, the where, the why, the how, like the specificity of it needs to be culturally relevant and based on the local, like wherever that specific place is. So we often are working on the positioning from like a global viewpoint, but then we have a team in the UK, and then we have partners throughout different countries to help make sure that we have the right people on the ground that are the most in touch with the actual community or the audience that we're trying to reach, and making sure that it's really resonating and we have the right tactics in place and the right way to show up, and doing it in a really, again, authentic way to that community to make sure that it'll be the best way, the most well received.
And I mean, Ben, when you don't have offices in 10 different countries, how do you make sure that you understand what local affinities or needs might be?
Well, I think we all know a lot of people in every country, even if we don't have offices there. And I think the key is to engage with local communities and ask them for advice. It's absolutely right. We again, as communicators, we don't have the answers to all the issues out there. And I think it's very fair to say, it's even better, it's actually very productive to say, listen, I don't have the answer to that question, or I'm not legitimate to talk about this topic because of who I am, because of my background. However, I'm going to engage with people who are going to help us, attack the subject and find, a solution to the issue in the best manner. And I think that's what we do. That's what I do.
And actually, we are getting quite a lot of questions from people who are with us today. So thank you very much, guys. Love to see you all engaged. One of the questions is, with agencies having to balance performance marketing with brand storytelling, how do you see the ideal agency model evolving in the next 3 to 5 years? Will hybrid agencies dominate, or will hyper specialization win? So I know that we have addressed that a little bit, but I was wondering, do any of you have any further thoughts about that?
Yes, I'll start then. I think there is an agency for each client. I think some agencies are great, perfect for some clients, and some agencies are not right for some clients. And I think it's very important to find the right match and find the right agency or the right client who are very comfortable with. I don't think there is a model. I think for me, it's only about the people and the connection that you have with the person you work with or work for.
Lucien, do you have any thoughts about this?
No, I agree with Ben. I think to come back to the beginning when Ben explained his new way of doing PR, I think it's interesting because when I arrived in the landscape, there was only big PR agency, KCD, Carla Auto, and there was not like the boutique agency were not like so I find my space there and I create my own way of doing it. And I like that what Ben said about because I think he understood something really important, that he worked for big brand, but as well for small brands, so he can bring best practice in both sides. It's really something that I have experiment, and there is not, and of course the agency will be hybrid because there is so many tools now. So you cannot say to a client, oh, I don't understand TikTok, or I don't understand, like, because basically it's a part of our life, of our work. So you need to be a bit hybrid. Then, of course, as I think we addressed that it's the same for me, being in the group, the independent, as Lisa said, like if I'm limited on something, I can ask some people from the group to work with me on a subject, maybe like more specific, more tech or more, voila. But also maybe I can work with Ben or Lisa on a project. You know what I mean? It's because more and more we do work on big event, where only one agency is not enough in terms of resources, in terms of reach, in terms of so everything will be hybrid, inside one agency, but also with the other agency. Is like an ecosystem, and everyone has a way to do things that can be specific for one client, but also we can make ally and propose global solution.
Yeah, I think that's something that people outside of PR don't realize, but we as journalists see it, that we'll be in one event and we'll see this person from this agency and this person from another agency, and you'll be like, wait, and then you realize, well, yeah, it's so big, they need more than one agency to be working on it.
Also, we are not competitors. As I said, I think there are agencies for clients, and I don't think we are fighting for the same, like, I think we are, on the contrary, working towards the same goal.
And I think there's not a one size fits all approach for every single client. I mean, I think to what Lucien and Ben both said, like we work with clients that are, I know you mentioned we started a lot with direct to consumer, but we also work with large, publicly traded companies or boutique smaller brands. And there's some that we do multiple services for or multiple channels, and there's others we work with other partners. Like we rather it be the right mix than, the wrong. And to Ben's point about it just being also about the right people in the room, you need to have people who understand that you're on there's a mutual understanding of what success looks like, and metrics absolutely is part of that, and seeing, where you've gotten stories and being able to measure all of that. But also there's some that are going to be more like brand elevating and some that are going to be more, traffic drivers and things like that. So having a really shared understanding of what the goals are and figuring out the right way to get there.
And so we have one question, which is from Marina. And this is kind of like the public service part, I think, of what we're doing today. She wants to know what makes a great PR person. So, this is like maybe for the young people who want to come and work in your industries. What are the most essential qualities and qualifications, both soft and hard skills, that you're looking for in those young people?
Okay, I can start if you want. I think it's really important for us to make it not a transmission, because we are not that old, but because we went through that process of wanting to work in fashion, wanted to work in PR, and we made it. It's also to give back, to explain that everything is possible, and if you're really passionate, you can arrive in fashion and you can make your place. So I would say that the passion is really important. For me, is the key, because you cannot be perfect, but if you are really motivated, the motivation, the hard work, it's kind of basic, but PR is not something you learn at school, for sure. I always say the only thing you can learn at school for being a PR is the English. If you do, so have a good English if you are not English spoken person, because Ben and I are French, for example, and after, it's also, I think you have to love the people. You have to love you have to deeply have a love for the others, because you have to understand them. You have to know how to explain them a project. You have to understand that sensitivity, their sensibility, who they are, and it's working for the clients, working for the journalists, working for the people, the key opinion leader, whatever, influence people. You create a connection. So creating this affect with them I think is really important, because people tell me, oh, it has changed so much now. There is social media, and for me, I'm doing the same job for a journalist or a social media person. I'm connecting with this person, and I'm connecting her to a project or to a brand. So my job, that is in between, for me is the same, even though I have to adapt myself to the person. But I think it's your capability of adaptation as well that is the key.
And Lisa, what makes a star on your team?
I think I agree with everything Lucien said. I think there's being intellectually curious and a voracious consumer. If you're consuming podcasts, reading, watching, TikTok, everything, seeing what's out there and then what's connecting because you have to see what's relevant and what's working, and not everything is going to work for every one of your brands, but seeing and getting inspired by what is actually working and doing it, making sure that you're providing like really smart ideas that connect the brand or your client to whatever the audience is, but just seeing what is actually working, like being part of our job, regardless of what medium it is, like we are connecting a brand to an audience. And so, or through journalists or through, creators or influencers, like knowing what actually will make sense for them and it'll be authentic. It won't just be, making sure it makes sense and being thoughtful about it. So scrappiness, and then I think just being curious and well consumed.
And Ben, you've worked with huge teams and now a smaller team. What makes people really shine in your eyes?
I think it's having what they said, what Lisa and Lucien said, finger on the pulse. To be a good PR, you have to know exactly what's happening in the world. Your general culture has to be always on top of everything. You have to be very curious. You also have to be smart, translate ideas into something possible, feasible. I think we all have strong soft skills that you don't learn at school. Sometimes I think that I'm a therapist or a psychologist as well. You have to understand, but by definition, creative directors are sensitive people and artists, and by definition, artists they don't think like regular people. So I think most of the time, I do think that my job is to understand them and get the ideas that they have and translate them into something real, concrete. But yeah, I think curiosity, soft skills, this is very important in our industry to become good PR.
Yeah, I think you guys have not used the word diplomacy, but I feel like diplomacy is also very important in this field,
Yes.
as it is for us, because it's always about managing expectations and making sure that people feel like they were heard. So this is a bit of a toughie, and this might be our last question because we've only got a few minutes, but let's get our crystal balls out as we look ahead to 2025. What key shifts do you anticipate in the PR landscape, and what advice would you give to brands to stay ahead and adapt effectively? Who wants to have a little go at rubbing the crystal ball?
Okay, I'll start. I think I'll tell brands to be true to themselves, to be, I think it's more efficient to do less, but do it well, be laser focused in what you have to do versus trying to be all over the place. It's not necessary to be on all touch points. It's not necessary to be, to talk about all the topics. I think it's better to be focused, understand your assignment, and do that.
Yeah, because the reality is we are talking also about an environment where budgets are being very carefully considered. So would that advice apply across both, traditional media campaigns and events and kind of direct to consumer outreach, Ben?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are many, many ways to amplify a campaign today. You can have great images and you can have big budgets to put them in print and out of home and everywhere, actually. That's great. But if you're a small brand and you have a very strong campaign, there are also very interesting ways to amplify that campaign and amplify your message without being, in the very expensive print medias, or without having the budget to take a big billboard in a capital. So I think it's up to us, PR people, communication people, to help our brands navigate efficiency with budget constraints.
And Lisa,
that's what makes a good PR, actually.
Yeah,
I think you wanted to say something to that point as well.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree with what Ben said, and I think the media landscape will continue to be fragmented, and it's finding the right audiences that will connect you with the brand, with the consumer, the audience they're trying to reach, right? Like the rise of Substackers or different creators, things like that. Like you can get a much more engaged, smaller audience that'll be more impactful. And so I think, to Ben's point, being super laser focused on like who you are, who you're trying to reach, and focus on that, not be everything to everybody.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what you were saying about being super informed. So maybe knowing that, okay, you know, said influencer has maybe 20,000 followers and not 1 million, but they may be exactly who you need to drive conversion or to reach a particular kind of person.
Yeah, but sorry, as well, this year will be totally unexpected. It's the first time that there will be so many changes. I mean, September Fashion Week will be like totally hysterical. People, I think, might die. Every day there will be a new a new show of a creative director that is very expected. Like it never, from my experience, it will be the first time that there is, and I don't know, Joelle or Ben or Lisa, if you had the same feeling, but it's the first time that there will be so many new collection, new beginning. So it's always it's creating, like I see my client, they're always like the one that are there and good, but they're always like thinking what will be my place there. So we will have new challenge because we will have to make exist brand with the attention that will be put on all those big brands, starting with new creative director. So we will have, or we participate to those new adventure because it's your client that was named or whatever, and we will have to also make the brand that are stable exist in a landscape of true excitement for the novelty. So
Yes.
that's, for me, that will be my personal challenge. It will be how I will work on a new store, on a new beginning, but also I will make exist people that are not boring at all. They are very talentuous, but they are not the novelty. And we are in fashion, and of course, if people crave for news so it will be interesting because there will be the fight between the beginners, but there will be the fight of the people who want to exist in that, because in that exciting moment, but also chaotic moment.
Yes,
But I
absolutely.
think, Lucia, it's very interesting what you said. I see September Fashion Week as a volcano sort of explosion.
Olympics.
Yes, no, it's more like a volcano explosion. But then I think the real work for everyone else will start when the ashes fall down and when we start working again. Because I mean, there will be this very first collection for all the new designers, which is going to be massive. And it's true that it's going to be hard for a lot of designers to exist in September Fashion Week because the entire space will be taken by those big brands with new designers. But I think at the end of the day, what matters is the consistency, the talent, the authenticity. And I think after September Fashion Week, we will see who rises and who doesn't, you know?
Thank you so much, Ben. That's so true. I think this is unfortunately all that we're going to have time for in this session. But to wrap it up, I will say that I'm taking away from your conversation the need for agility and the need for authenticity as we navigate this ever-changing landscape, and also a big, healthy dose of creativity and passion. So thank you to all of you for bringing your creativity and passion to this conversation.
Thank you, Joelle.
Thanks, all. Have a good day.
Bye.